What is going on, everyone? Abdul here, and I'm here with another discussion video in regards to Crash Team Rumble. This marks the second discussion video during this whole Crash Team Rumble news week, or news month. It's been an eventful month for the game, and there's even more positive news over the past week in regards to the game. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you guys like this kind of format for my videos, please give it a like. Make sure to let me know in the comments if you really enjoy this kind of format of my videos. And yeah, if you're enjoying the channel, if you're enjoying the videos and live streams, please feel free to subscribe and let me know what you think about all of this. So let's get into the topic at hand. There has been quite a lot of positive news in regards to the game. There has been still some negative sentiments to this day in regards to the game, which is expected. You know, it's a brand new title, it's a brand new take to the franchise, it's not a new thing. So coming over and covering all the stuff that's been out over the past week. So the moment that we speculated that there may not be a physical edition of the game, lo and behold, like a few days later, just before going into April, a physical version of the deluxe edition was confirmed. And not only that, there is going to also be a physical cross-gen deluxe edition, which is honestly really awesome to see a cross-gen version even. It's kind of a shame that there is not going to be a standard physical version, but I mean, I guess either way you're gonna be getting the game anyway, so it really depends on someone's tastes. So in regards to the physical edition, especially the cross-gen edition, this in a nutshell would allow you to basically get either versions of the game, while the other version of that specific console you get for free. So it's kind of like a free upgrade essentially. So if you get the physical cross-gen edition for PS4, you get the PS5 version for free. If you get the PS5 cross-gen version, you get the PS4 version. And it's like, I think that's actually really cool. And adding to the physical version, it's also been confirmed that in select retailers, at least from what I know for now, like in Best Buy, GameStop, and I think Amazon, I could be completely wrong about this, but pre-ordering the game physically actually does give you access to the beta coming up in like 14 days from now, so in 2 weeks. The Battle Pass system was also properly revealed, and I think it goes without saying that it is a 100-tier Battle Pass system. The free side to the Battle Pass has been also confirmed, so just because Premium has been consistently mentioned, this indirectly says that there will be a free-to-play portion, or a free side essentially, without having to pay for the Premium side. So they went ahead and basically confirmed that as well. The game is also going to feature play-to-earn cosmetics and rewards, so I think that's actually a good thing. But at the same time, people still should expect some form of MTX or microtransactions in the game, because a multiplayer game without microtransactions today is completely unheard of. Especially one with a Battle Pass system, whether it's free or paid. So, just so people don't get surprised about this, please, 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 if you're still in the mindset that there will not be any MTX in the game, expect microtransactions in the game. Expect it. It's a multiplayer game. It will have microtransactions. Now, if there will not be microtransactions and suddenly, you know, it's been 2 months into the game and there's still no signs of them, please come back to this video sometime and tell me, hey, Abdul, you're wrong and there's no MTX in the game. Frankly, I will be happy. But, you know, it's like a small setback, you know, it's not the end of the world. Nitro-Fueled did not really do anything with its own microtransactions. They were just there at the same time. They were earnable just by simply playing the game. So, there's that. As well as the free and premium sides of the Battle Pass being confirmed, both sides are also entirely cosmetic. Yes, they actually confirmed that in the blog post that was covered officially by Toys for Bob. New modes are also properly confirmed this time. New power-ups and new heroes are earnable and not locked behind the Battle Pass, so essentially, yeah, that's basically what the point says. New power-ups and new heroes and characters will not be tied or locked behind the battle pass, and I think that is actually a very smart thing to do, because this time around we are dealing with new characters and new power-ups that are like not only unique but usable at the same time. So anything like that being locked behind the battle pass or behind a paywall essentially would basically be either pay to win if a character or power-up is really strong, or pay to lose if it's the complete opposite. Cosmetics are also earnable through seasonal challenges. So obviously, being a premium battle pass in the game, obviously not everything is going to be earnable, but there will also be cosmetics that will be earnable through these seasonal challenges. And hopefully, you know, in the same vein as Nitro-Fueled, these cosmetics will in some way, shape, or form at least come back within the game's in-game store, or whatever they're gonna call it. It's very clear they're not going to call it a pit stop again, because that's like kind of a racing thing. So yeah, cosmetics, some cosmetics will be earnable through challenges, so I think that's a very good thing. It's not only going to incentivize people to also earn the free side in the battle pass, it's also going to have people be able to earn cosmetics through season challenges, and I think that's actually a very neat concept. Seasons also seemingly last for roughly 3 months, so this is not really a bad thing, because this also allows for people and players to basically have more than enough time to finish up challenges, earn the season awards that they want, and finish up the battle pass for those that don't want to sell their time to the game every day. So I think that's actually what Nitro-Fueled kind of did wrong in a way, because every single month there was a new Grand Prix, and that in a nutshell basically really incentivized grinding the game and resulted in burnout. So I feel like this is a step in the right direction. Yes, content may be a little slower, but this is just my assumption, but maybe they might be going the Call of Duty route, where you have the start of the season and then you have the season refresh in the middle of that very season. So you have some content releasing at the beginning of the season, and then you have some content arriving later in the season, maybe like a halfway point for the season. And I think adjusting content releases like that is actually really smart, because I think it also gives time for that halfway point content to also be tested, and also give more ample time for the next season's content to be adequate, good, solid, and actually fun. Each hero or each character will also have its own progression level, so I'm hopefully assuming this is not going to be skins. But if it's going to be in the same vein as Nitro-Fueled, then I guess they could have like earnable skins if you play more than enough races for each character. Enough matches for each character. So I think a progression system for each character is actually really good for completionists. But at the same time, it needs to be fun and not a drag to level up and progress for each hero. So hopefully they do see that, where, you know, a player's time is really important, instead of just constantly playing the game over and over and over again. Because at the end of the day, these kind of games do want to suck you in and basically tell you that, hey, our game is fun, you will play it. And it's like, okay, sure, is the gameplay loop fun? And is it worthwhile? And is it actually good for my time? If it is, then the product will speak for itself, naturally, with any game or product. Additionally, if someone leaves a match, a bot will take their place. This is very common practice in any multiplayer game, most multiplayer games at least. Those that, you know, have very little players within a match or game. If it's something like a battle royale, then obviously there's not going to be bots in the game. Because, you know, the important thing about that mode is survivability, so if someone leaves, they're gone from the game entirely. There's not going to be any bots or any replacement. So for this kind of game, I think it's actually a really good thing, because they're basically taking notes from Nitro-Fueled, because when someone leaves the game, you don't want suddenly an empty lobby and a race by yourself and online. So that's a good thing. Cross progression speaks for itself. It's a very good thing to have. It's a very consumer thing to have, because no matter which console or which version you play, whether you're playing on the PS4 version or the Xbox One version or the PS5 or Xbox Series S or X version, or even in a hypothetical PC or Switch version that may come in the future, your progress, everything, your account will be there. And what's only bad about that, or not really good about that, is you need to tie your console-specific account. So if you have a PlayStation account, you will need an Activision account. You will need to tie that to an Activision account if you want your progress to show up in another platform like Xbox, Switch, or PC. So I know there's no Switch or PC version yet, but considering all the releases, all the game releases so far have come to Switch, even Xbox is like promising Call of Duty to come to Switch in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule out a Switch version at the very least. And if there is not going to be a PC version, at least what, could happen after the acquisition, if it gets approved, then what they could do, I guess, is put the game on Game Pass, or PC Game Pass even, because that would just put it on the Xbox ecosystem, and I think that would be a great plus for the game as a whole. Moreover, during the beta, you can join public matches, private matches with friends, and hone your skills against bots. So what this tells me is that there are 3 key modes confirmed for this game. You have public matches, which is online matchmaking. That's normal for any game. You have private matches you can set up with friends, private lobbies you can set up with friends. It's exactly how Nitro-Fueled is. How customizable it is, we do not know, because Nitro-Fueled was not really customizable. You're only able to either turn the bots on or off and select any of the tracks that you want to play on. That's really it. There wasn't much customizability in Nitro-Fueled. There was no item customizability, there was no fire customizability, there was nothing. So yeah, that is 2 modes. You have public mode, you have private mode. So online matchmaking and private lobbies with friends, or bots even. The 3rd mode is honing your skills against bots. What this tells me is that this is a practice mode. A practice mode, or kind of like an offline mode in a sense, that you can basically play against bots. What I'm concerned about is this local multiplayer. Are you able to locally play with family or friends that are with you, basically? So if this is strictly just a one-player mode against bots, then I think that's like okay, I guess, but it would have been better, or it would be better because we don't know yet. It would be better if this was a local multiplayer mode where you can either play against bots solely, or you can play with friends locally. And I think that would be a really good thing to have should the game ever lose its servers, which I highly doubt, because Nitro-Fueled still has its servers up almost 4 years later. And most of the Call of Duty games, even the really older ones in the 360 and PS3 days, they're still up. So whether or not they will shut down in the future, we really don't know. That's really up to the console manufacturer for that, so Call of Duty servers in a nutshell are really easy to uphold, so it's really not that much server space for a game like Crash Team Rumble's caliber. So the fact that there's also cross progression and crossplay, and so I guess in my eyes kind of incentivizes that server space is going to be reasonable, but at the same time not massive, that it should be its own thing, like what Crash on the Run did. What Crash on the Run did was basically have its own server space, completely separate from other games, and it's not really tied to any other game. So the fact that Nitro-Fueled was also, a part of the whole Demonware server side, it kind of gave it its own identity, but at the same time relating to Call of Duty servers, if that makes sense. So in a way, console multiplayer games are a lot easier to uphold, like Call of Duty, like Crash on console, compared to mobile, because I feel like that's actually a really good thing to have. I sidetracked a bit, but bear with me. Beta progress, this is a very important one. Beta progress will not carry over to the release of the game. Now, this is really standard practice. This is basically to just keep a level and balanced playing field for everyone, on release. You're not going to have someone that reached level 100 with a certain character on the first day of the game because they, massacred the beta. So that's very, very understandable. Finally, we will have an MMR system of some kind, so veteran players will not stomp new ones. And in a nutshell, this is basically skill-based matchmaking. Skill-based matchmaking, at least in Call of Duty, and in most of gaming as a whole, has been looked at as like a very negative thing. But at the same time, if you're having a game that started as like fun, consistent matchmaking that is, focusing on connection, I think that's actually really good to have. Way better than relying on an MMR system that is mostly just tied to competitiveness more than public matchmaking. But since since we are dealing with crossplay, an MMR system makes total sense. I just hope they would put a balanced emphasis on an MMR system and a balanced emphasis on connection. Because what Nitro-Fueled had was that its last focus was connection. Because we all know how horrid, and it still is horrid, how Nitro-Fueled's online experience is. There's no crossplay, there's no cross-progression. Its online was really bare bones. You didn't have any other mode other than your basic-ass online racing, and you couldn't even choose how many laps you wanted to play against other people unless you're in a private lobby. So, yeah, I mean, it's really not much to say. But yeah, this is all the key information that was revealed on the official Activision blog about Crash Team Rumble. So the next topic that I wanted to get into is Crash Team Rumble a MOBA? Now, the very big comparison that I've been reading, and the very big comparison that I've been seeing what people are doing, is Pokemon Unite. People are comparing this game to Pokemon Unite for some reason. I skimmed through some gameplay. I'm not familiar with Pokemon Unite. I'm not familiar with Dota as much, but I can kind of get into League and Smite, which I will get into momentarily. I'm focusing on Pokemon Unite in a nutshell for now on this short segment. Pokemon Unite is kind of on par with League, so in a nutshell, I will use League as an example. For Crash Team Rumble to be a MOBA, it needs to have crucial elements that define a MOBA, because just having an online infrastructure, having a multiplayer game, having it all be taken in a battle arena, it's all pointless. This is just a genre. It doesn't define what the games actually are. And it's not like, even if Crash Team Rumble was a MOBA, it's not. I mean, the developers confirmed it. I'll play the clip right here.
Yeah, one thing I do want to state at the very start of this, though, is that one of the things the game isn't is a MOBA. The game is not a MOBA.
Is it a MOBA?
It is not a MOBA, Dan.
Is it a MOBA?
No, it is a strategic multiplayer platforming game.
That's right.
We do not have a cute acronym for it or a name for this genre. We're trying to kind of figure that out. So if you have any ideas, let us know. We're totally all ears, but it's not a MOBA.
That's right. And the way we're going to describe the game is just by describing the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So coming back, even if Crash Team Rumble was a MOBA, it's not, the term is not like a cardinal sin all of a sudden on the franchise or on gaming. It's just a genre. It's just like a title. It doesn't define what the game actually is. There are a lot of crucial elements that basically already define that genre as a whole. Primarily massive MOBAs like League, Smite, and Dota. 3 big MOBAs that basically define what the genre is. So coming back to the crucial elements, they are farming, one single key map that every player primarily plays on and has constant changes, like League's Summoner's Rift. You have lanes, itemization, jungle monsters, towers and objectives that cannot be taken until you reach a specific level or certain itemization strategies, and so on. Inhibitors in League, or I think Phoenixes in Smite, I believe. It's a bit different in Smite, but the core concept is the exact same. Like what inhibitors are in League of Legends, it's kind of the exact same in Smite. And I believe Dota is like practically the exact same layout as League's map, just slightly different and slightly altered for the Dota experience. And yeah, so having health and unique abilities with one particular common goal, or one particular common objective, it's really not enough to really qualify as a MOBA. Otherwise, we might as well just call Overwatch a MOBA, as I mentioned in my previous discussion video of Crash Team Rumble. Overwatch has health, has strategization, has unique heroes and characters, each with their own abilities and ultimates, and some of them have passives, and I didn't get into passives. Each MOBA is heavily focused on having primary stuff that focuses on the in-game or in-match currency that involves farming minions, jungle monsters, which is the PvE element of MOBAs, epic monsters, it's still PvE, towers, inhibitors to spawn super minions, that's a League thing. I'm not sure if Smite or Dota are the exact same, but both games still spawn minions regardless. Basic attacks, which is like every single game in a nutshell. In multiplayer, you need to have at least a form of a basic attack or some form of attack as a whole. Ultimate abilities, passives, and so on. All of these factors that I have mentioned so far are very, very, very crucial and important to have within a MOBA. Most, if not all, of these factors are not in Rumble so far. From the footage and gameplay that we have seen so far, you do not have farming, you do not have towers, you don't have lanes, you don't have minions, you don't have jungle farming, you don't have itemization, you don't have level up in-game, and you don't have, from my knowledge, passives or any ultimate abilities. You have powers that anyone can choose in the game. It's not limited to any specific character. So all of these factors are what signifies a MOBA to be a MOBA in its own genre. Like I mentioned, none of these things are in Rumble, so the fact that people think or say that it's a MOBA is like really tone deaf in a way. I'm not going to say it's tone deaf, but if people are seeing it as a MOBA, that's completely fine, but at the same time, you gotta see the gameplay of a MOBA. A MOBA is, if anything, the easiest way to say that it's not a MOBA, or the easiest comparison or key thing to signify that it's not a MOBA is the verticality of a map. Every single MOBA, from my knowledge, has a flat and basic map that you are able to learn. It has lanes, it has a jungle, it has a river or two, it has epic monsters, it has farming, it has buffs that are important to your team and your own character even. Buffs are like one thing, sure, but like that's a team thing, it's a strategy thing. It's not like, it's not a single thing only MOBAs can do. Any game genre can do that. You can have Call of Duty do buffs, which it actually does because you have ammo boxes that actually help your team. That's just one instance that I can think of from the top of my head from Call of Duty. So if I say that, does that make Call of Duty a MOBA now? You see how this comparison is very flawed? And coming to one other comparison that I've recently read, and I think it's also a flawed comparison to have, and it's still League of Legends also. So League of Legends used to have another mode that is basically domination. It was called Dominion, and it took place in a completely separate map from the main map, which is Summoner's Rift. That domination map was called Crystal Scar, and it was basically a circular map with some buffs and abilities that, you know, it helps your character basically boost you and to go fast within that map and basically capture certain zones or points that basically give you points, or it does the opposite. It actually takes away points from the enemy's crystal. So what it essentially does, the more points or zones you take over, the more points it attacks against your enemy's crystal. Hence the name Crystal Scar. You basically have to take down the enemy's crystal, and to do that you need to capture these 3 zones and take down the enemy League style. So like any domination mode in any other game, this is exactly what it is. Rumble is focusing on being important to stay alive and actually banking your stuff. Domination or Dominion in this Crystal Scar map in League that used to exist is a domination mode. It is required for you to take control of these zones to win. In Rumble, you have maybe, I think, 2 or 3 sets of gem platforms. And if you take them over, you actually gain bonuses to your already done objective. Like, you're already doing Wampa banking, right? You just breathe near a box, and you come back to your bank and score. That is not the same as a domination mode. You could say that taking over the gem platforms may be like a very small game of domination. In a way, like any other game where you have 3 flags or 3 platforms in the map entirely to take over, and that's fine. But the thing is, in Rumble, every map so far doesn't really have that. It has 3 of them or 4 of them in some cases, I believe, in the Just Beachy map. But if you just take over one of them, they get locked. And so your team actually gets the bonus for scoring more Wampa. So you have a threshold of scoring and taking Wampa, but you also have the risk of losing that Wampa, because now you have to basically go back to your bank and fight against the enemy if they're in your way. So, again, I don't understand how or why people are comparing this to a MOBA or League's own domination mode, Dominion. So, it's already a flawed comparison. As I mentioned in my previous discussion video for Rumble, I think what best describes this game, because even Toys for Bob are not set in what kind of genre this game is, I think the best way to explain this game is maybe just make up an entirely new term. Multiplayer online platformer arena. And it's even going into my own genre that I gave it. It's an arena platformer. The same way you have arena shooters, like I believe Overwatch or Doom, it's the same way in this one. You have an arena shooter genre, and you have an arena platformer genre. And the closest thing to this, in my eyes, is Splatoon. Splatoon is a very unique concept because while still inherently in some way a very kid-friendly shooter, it still involves you to strategize and move around and actually go up and down the map. You have verticality in the map. There is no such thing as a MOBA with platforming. There's literally no such thing. This would not even be a standard MOBA at that point. Like, it would just be way off from a MOBA. So as I mentioned, all of these crucial factors that make a MOBA, like League of Legends, like Smite, like Dota, or even Paragon even. I'm not that familiar with Paragon, but like I'm just focusing on the 3 key MOBAs that we have today. So coming back to the main question, is Crash Team Rumble a MOBA? Newsflash, no it's not. It is not a MOBA. It is far from a MOBA. It has some MOBA elements like health, unique abilities, a power-up that you need to fill up. That's basically kind of like an ultimate, but guess what? In actual MOBAs, your ultimate ability is locked when you reach a certain level, in League's case at least, level 6. And then in levels 11 and 16, you actually have the ability to level up your ultimate so it can get stronger. You don't have that thing in Rumble. You select a power-up, and that power-up takes time for it to fill up for you to use. That's not a cooldown. That's something you have to fill up, and to fill that up, you have to actually engage in the game itself, in the match. Whether fighting or banking, we don't know the exact details, but just interacting with the in-game stuff gives you that fill up bar. It fills up your gauge for you to basically use your power-up. It's kind of the same way as what Overwatch does it. Overwatch, you have abilities. Your own basic abilities that you use have cooldowns in them, so you can't spam them. And then your ultimate has a bar that you need to fill. And to fill that bar, you basically just have to engage in the match against the enemy, or play the objective. It depends on which one they do it with Rumble, but 100% it's gonna be fighting the enemy team or scoring Wampa. That's like the main game mode. And as I mentioned earlier, from the key main points, multiple game modes are confirmed. So I'd like to re-emphasize once again the same exact question: is Crash Team Rumble a MOBA? No, it's not. You are free to see it as a MOBA, but it is very clearly played differently than a MOBA. The MOBA genre is already specified on what actually makes a MOBA. You don't have a MOBA platformer, otherwise we might as well call Splatoon or Overwatch, as I mentioned earlier, a MOBA. So, in a nutshell, it's not a MOBA. Like, come on. Come on. Alright, so far, hopefully you guys are enjoying the video, and one final small topic that I would like to get into. Sorry if it gets a little negative, but this is really important for me to discuss in regards to the Crash franchise. So I was on a certain social site, I will not name it obviously, but I will just put it on screen. Someone asked, do you really expect this game to last more than 2 hours? They asked me. And I replied with, I expect and see value in it being a great addition as a spin-off than remaking the entire franchise. The series will not grow if we just repeat history and games. And then I added to that, plus, judging from your account, if you really want the PS2 games to be playable, grab an emulator, like PCSX2, and play them that way. Or get a Series S if you don't want to blow much cash for solid emulation, like a gaming PC or something. Games do not need a re-release unless they are universally beloved and panned by almost everyone. None of the games after the original CTR have been that whatsoever. And this is coming from someone that loves Titans and Minor Mutant. Let fresh new ideas come in instead of judging a product because it's not something that's exactly 100% the same ideas in your head, or that a product that you particularly asked or wanted. It may not be the thing that everyone asked for, but let's not pretend that we know everything until we get first-hand experience ourselves and see how it can be fun to us and judge the product for what it is and not for what it could be. In the wise words of a good friend of mine, Jeremiah Isaiah,
all Crash runs off of is nostalgia. The N.Sane Trilogy. Look at all these big ass YouTubers doing videos on the N.Sane Trilogy. Because of that I didn't grow when I did my series on the N.Sane Trilogy. It's all nostalgia. That's all Crash ran off of. That's all care about Crash for. It's nostalgia. That series takes a step out of its comfort zone. It's deemed bad automatically. They're not looking at the product for what it is, but what they wish that it could be. But these fans keep thinking that, and this even goes like into the fucking Sonic fan base. Niggas think that they own these series when really they don't.
Do you think, from your end, the character of Crash and the type of gameplay, is there room, do you think, for new Crash games? I mean, is that the kind of thing like the concept of it? I mean, the gameplay in Uncharted 4 and even now, it's like it still holds up. Do you guys think? I mean, would you like to see Crash sort of continue forward? New game? What kind of games do you think that could be?
Would it be real 3D?
I mean, Crash is his own character. He goes off and does whatever he wants to do. I think it's great that there's this nostalgia period where we're bringing it back. That 20 years ago is when I think a lot of people want to play with their kids now that played it when they were younger or want to play with their kids. Remember the first game, so I think that's fantastic. There is a very good question whether or not Crash is a character that after the nostalgia of doing the games we've already made, do you take the character and do something new, do something more contemporary that speaks to this generation of gamer? And I don't know. That would be a challenge. Because again, we kind of left Crash thinking that he was PS1.
Yeah.
It was way too early for nostalgia, but it was also for us a little too late for that character to move into the world that Jack took up much better, and then eventually the Uncharted world that needed a more adult character, needed real world. Wouldn't have worked with cartoony characters to do Uncharted. It wouldn't have had the same impact. I don't know if you go back and take a character from PlayStation and can make them relevant beyond the nostalgia. So that remains to be seen.
So I would like to add my own words to this comment, and it actually got me thinking when I read this at around 11 a.m. right before I was grabbing a nap in that day. When you think about it, the franchise has introduced a new experience every single game at the very least after CTR. CTR was a brand new kart racing experience that essentially took its notes fully from Diddy Kong Racing. It wasn't new, but it was kind of fresh and new to the franchise. After Crash Team Racing, the original one, every single game from Bash onwards has introduced something new. Crash Bash introduced something new. It took some notes from Mario Party at the time, but it introduced some new elements for Crash. After that, you had Wrath of Cortex. It took a lot of notes from Crash 3, but it was still inherently a new experience. After Wrath of Cortex, you have Twinsanity, which was a completely brand new experience for the franchise. And then you have Nitro Kart, which tried to emulate and still failed to really emulate Crash Team Racing, but in terms of controls, it didn't really emulate that well. But as a whole, the game was actually fun and still provided a brand new experience in some way, shape, or form with the story, tracks, and content. After that, you have Tag Team Racing, which was still a brand new game, but it tried to mix platforming and racing, which it didn't really do much with either. It still came out as mediocre at the end of the day, in my opinion, but it was still fun for what it is. It was still a brand new experience. And after that, you had Titans and Mind of Mutant, which were completely brand new experience that, went a bit too far from the classic Crash platforming formula, but it was still a brand new experience. So I don't understand why people are suddenly opposed to the idea of brand new experiences when the entire franchise revolves around introducing brand new experiences, while still in some way adhering to the classic platforming that the franchise is beloved for. But as I mentioned before, it's totally fine for people to, judge a game for what it is and, basically be something that they are not, interested in. That is more than fine. But for you to come in, judge the game for what it's not, and, put it on a low pedestal while putting rushed, unfinished messes of games during the PS2 era on a pedestal and think that it's the best thing ever, and then coming back to this product and assume that there is no passion being done. I'm sorry, but people need to be realistic with their expectations. And if you... I don't want to say this, but this is a really bad statement to say from me. I know it's bad, I don't want to say it, but I feel like someone kind of has to say it in a way. If people want more Crash games, they need to play the current one and give valid criticism, because if nobody does that, if people are just going to shun the game because, oh yeah, this is not a single player game, this is not Crash 5, or this is not another CTR or Crash Team Racing, it's not Crash Team Racing 2. If no one is going to do their due diligence and actually, respect the game for what it's trying to do, respect the developers for what they're trying to do, and at the same time send death threats and threaten the artists that have worked really hard on Crash 4 and N.Sane Trilogy and even CTR Nitro-Fueled to a degree and even Crash on the Run, guess what? We won't even get a Crash 5. We won't even get anything. This game may as well be the final game that we might look forward to, and obviously that's not going to be the thing. A spin-off game is not going to suddenly kill an entire franchise. But, and this is me as well as a lot of people's thoughts and opinion, whether it's true or not, you guys be the judge of this. But what will guaranteeingly kill a franchise is its own fans. If its own fans are in charge of a franchise, you will have so many ideas that nobody will be ultimately satisfied with. It will not please anyone. Everyone will have their own headcanons, their own ideas, their own basically their own version of an ultimate Crash game in their eyes. And most of these comments and opinions and statements do not involve the wide audience, the new audience, and the core audience. It will not satisfy either of them. So if there is one way for the franchise to basically be killed, it would be letting fans control how the franchise is. Because if the developers are not allowed to introduce anything or any new liberties while still adhering to what makes the series so good, the series may as well be dead. Because what Crash Team Rumble has are these three key elements that define a classic platforming Crash game. Platforming, Wumpa collecting, and gems or relics that give you bonuses, whether it's extra levels or helping you within a match, which is a first for Crash Team Rumble being a multiplayer game. These 3 key elements are exactly what's in every single classic Crash game. Wumpa collecting, platforming, precision platforming is very important for the franchise, or just platforming as a whole, and gems and relics that in some way, shape, or form give a certain bonus. In Crash Team Rumble's case, grabbing all the gems or grabbing a specific set of gem platforms give you bonus Wumpa for you to bank, and the relics give you more powers to work with in certain maps, or in all maps, because all the relic stations are practically unique. So yeah, if there is one thing that will kill the franchise, it's to let its fans take over the franchise, because at the end of the day, it's the core audience and what the wide range audience is interested in and what the market is. The current market is multiplayer games with battle passes and open world games, because the next Crash game might become open world. Sonic Frontiers did it, Kirby did it, Mario kind of did it a bit early with Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda did it. Why can't Crash? You know, adhere to what makes the series good in the first place. That is Wumpa collecting, platforming, and gems and relics that give bonuses, whether it's levels or whatever bonuses that a hypothetical open world Crash game might give. So just judge the game for what it is, not what it could be, not what it should be, this and that. It's fine to give criticism because this is a multiplayer game. A multiplayer game is subject to change. By coincidence, in 1 year's time, we might actually see a story mode in Crash Team Rumble. Who knows? But realistically, it's not really possible because the game already shipped. Unless they make that single player story mode paid, then who knows, really? So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. As always, if you like this discussion, or if you like this video, or even if you like this entire format that I'm still working on, you know, testing, seeing how it goes, I'm still having fun doing this. It's really awesome, you know, sitting down, talking to you guys, and covering certain topics in games, whether it's Crash Team Rumble or anything else, you know, about Crash, or basically anything, really, any game, any topic, you know, whatever it is, really. If you guys have any topics that you would like me to cover about Crash Team Rumble, or any game, or any Crash game, or whatever it may be, essentially Spyro even, then I would be more than happy to read your guys' comments. Again, if you guys agree or disagree, please let me know in the comments what you think about this second discussion. So the beta is literally in 2 weeks. We'll see how it is. And oh yeah, one more thing. Do not take the beta as the final game. The final game is not until 2 months into the beta. So what happens in the beta is not representative of the final game. The beta is just to give us a taste of what the final game may be. We didn't have a Crash Team Racing beta because they didn't really focus on online. They really only focused on content that you can even use in single player. So there was really no need for a beta to begin with. Crash 4 had a demo. It was a demo that you can access at any time if you pre-ordered the game. Crash Team Rumble is a multiplayer first for the franchise, so the fact that it even has a beta is a miracle, and it shows that Toys for Bob actually does care about this game. They want it to succeed. They want it to at least do good and actually fit with other Crash games. So with that being said, the final statement that I would like to say is there was a certain video that made a really good point, and it's that if Crash Team Rumble actually makes itself fit with the franchise, fit with other games in the franchise, you know, being entirely single player focused, if this game actually manages to fit with other classic Crash games like Crash 1, 2, 3, Wrath of Cortex, Crash 4, the GBA games, you know, just the classic formula, if it actually manages, or just like Crash in general, if it actually manages to fit with other Crash games, that would be great. Because there's no reason for a classic Crash game with classic abilities and classic gameplay to not suddenly fit with the other games in the franchise. So, yeah, that's it for me. Again, if you guys like this video, if you guys like this format, if you agree or disagree with me, again, feel free to let me know in the comments and share your thoughts. Tell me what you want to see in this game, tell me what you think of this, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video and or live stream. So, have a good day, have a good night, and take care.